All right, welcome to today's class on DocuSign 201. My name is Leah with Scott Leroy Marketing. In today's class, we'll be going over the advanced tips and tricks of DocuSign. So I will not be taking you through the basics of DocuSign. We do have a DocuSign 101 class and a 20-minute overview of DocuSign to learn the basics that I'll put in the details of this video, and I'll send it out during class as well. But again, this class is meant to build on the DocuSign 101 class and only give you extra cool little tips. All right, so first things first, we do need to go ahead and log into Command. So if you have not already, let's log into Command by going to agent.kw.com. That's where I am now. That's agent.kw.com. I always remember that like it's the agent login for kw.com, if that helps. And we'll go ahead and log in. And if you're having any trouble with the password, first of all, I feel you because I have way too many passwords. But secondly, the password is case sensitive, if that helps at all. It does require a capital letter. If you have any trouble, you can always click Forgot Password, or you can shoot an email to support@scottleroymarketing.com. Just so you guys have our email, it's support@scottleroymarketing.com. So yeah, there is a DocuSign 101 class. It's not necessarily a prerequisite to this class. However, I just don't want you to feel very confused if you don't understand the basics of DocuSign, because I'm going to assume that you have a base knowledge of DocuSign in order to show you guys more advanced tips, since this is the 201 class. Right? But you can still sit in, even if you don't feel like you have a base knowledge of DocuSign. You can always sit in, take notes about what you want to learn further, and see cool tips that you can use as you start to feel more comfortable with DocuSign. All right, so now that I am logged into Command, there is one main thing, one piece of housekeeping that we'll need to do, and that is to make sure that your DocuSign account is linked with Command. All right, this step has to be done in order to use DocuSign with your opportunities. So let's just double check real quick. So if you can click on your name on the top right of Command, and then click on Settings. It will take you on over to all of the apps that you have available to link up to Command. Just to make sense of this section for you, I like to think of Command as an iPhone or Android, any smartphone. So right out the box, you get the smartphone with a lot of great features, right? iPhones have really awesome features. However, you also have an app store on your iPhone where you can download even more apps to increase the functionality of your iPhone. Same concept here. So in this app section, you'll see your connected apps at the top. So yours might be in a different order, and that's totally fine. For today's class, we need to scroll down and find the DocuSign option. In theory, it should be at the top of your screen if that's showing a connected status, since these are all your connected apps. All right? So this is what you want to see, what's on my screen. All right, if you do not have a DocuSign account linked up, you might have to scroll on down to find that, and you can just go ahead and click Connect Account to create that or link up your account. And just a heads up, before we go any further, I do want to share with you guys, I have notes on today's class. I'll go ahead and send that out just so you guys can have it. If you want to open it during class, I'll show you what I'm sending out. So I just put this in the chat if you want to open it. I'm just going to show you guys real quick, and you can always open this after class. But I tried to centralize, because of course we go over a lot in these classes, and it's hard to stuff it all in your brain. So I tried to break it down into shorter 10-minute tip videos and also notes, written notes. These two are written notes. If you prefer written notes, I have that as well. And also I try to put all our tip videos there. So I would highly recommend, just at least saving that to the side so that you can use that as you go forward when you try to apply these tips and can't remember anything I said in the future. All right. So now that we have done the boring housekeeping of ensuring that DocuSign is linked to Command, the best way or the easiest way I have found to locate my opportunities is through the contact section of Command. Now, just as far as, the basics of doing a transaction in Command, what I want to stress to you guys is it's very important that you always start a transaction in Command. And if you're taking notes on today's class, I'll highlight the noteworthy moments. This is one of them. again, when you go to start a transaction in Command, you have to start it in Command. So in the past, right, if you were used to using .loop, we always started our loop in .loop and went on our merry little way. Things are a little different now, okay? Now that we're using DocuSign with Command, it's really important that you start your opportunity first, in your contacts, and then create the DocuSign room from there. And I'll show you how that works. If that sounded like a different language, no worries, all right? But it is very important that you always start the transaction from here. So if you have a practice contact in your database that you want to go ahead and practice with, okay, or any opportunity, you can of course go ahead and click Add Contact on the top right to add a test contact. All right, but instead of creating a new opportunity, I'm going to use an existing one. So I would just go ahead and open an existing opportunity. And now you can access your opportunities in a couple different ways, and I'll show you them. However, the easiest way I have found to find my opportunities is by going to the contact record itself. So I am searching for the contact, clicking on the contact name, okay, and once I do that, on the right-hand side, I'll see the opportunities section. Okay, so this is opportunities. Now to draw this full circle for you guys, I would like to point out that the opportunities section of Command is also on the left-hand side menu. So if I click on this KW logo to pull out this menu, I just want to point out that the actual opportunities dashboard is right here. And you can take a look at that. Actually, the opportunities class is tomorrow if you'd like to attend, 1 p.m. Eastern time. It will be me again. Lucky you. All right, but the opportunities dashboard, it does correlate to the contact record, right? So this is giving you kind of like a quick view of any opportunities you have created for this contact. And if you're asking yourself what the heck an opportunity is, okay, I feel like I asked myself the same thing when I started with Command. An opportunity is Command's version of a transaction, okay? So think of an opportunity like you're standing in line at the grocery store, you're a great agent, so you had your name badge in, they start talking to you about the market, and you get their contact information and put them in your database, okay? That is an opportunity, right? It's a transaction, it's a potential acquaintance that could turn into a sale. Okay, so that is the idea of an opportunity here. So you can even enter in opportunities all the way from the very beginning of meeting the client, because it'll be lead to close management. And we cover that in detail in the opportunities class. I definitely recommend checking that out. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and click on one of the opportunities that I have already here. Okay, so if I go ahead and click on any of the opportunities from here, and guys, feel free if you are looking for an opportunity from a contact record, you can pull open any of them, it doesn't matter. But all you'll need to do is click on the opportunity name to get into the details section of that opportunity. I'm going to switch over to a listing to help show you guys that actually. One sec. All right. Okay, so now that I'm in an opportunity, a couple things to note here. So again, I'm going to now cover additional tips I think that will really help you guys. So first of all, let's talk about how DocuSign gets information to autofill onto your forms. Okay, and DocuSign does pull a lot of that information from the contact record within Command. Okay, so you will want to make sure that the correct contact is linked up with the correct email. Also, it pulls in a lot of the property information into DocuSign to autofill onto your forms, okay? So let's take a look at how that works. Now for a buyer, if this is a buyer opportunity, you won't have the option to select from listings at the top, okay? But if it is your listing, you can just watch here. Okay, if it is your listing, so if this is a listing opportunity, you do have the option to select from listings to pull in that listing information right away. Okay, so this will autofill it onto all of your forms if you pull the listing information in. Now it defaults to only my listings, which has been a little off and on as far as if the only my listings section is working. So if you have listings and you're not seeing them under only my listings, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not there. Command is just still working on grouping them to label it as your listings. So an easy workaround to that, just change it from only my listings to all listings. You can search here at the top by street address or MLS number. I'm just going to scroll down and randomly pick one. Feel free to do the same. So I'm just going to click select to the right of any of these listings. Or if you have a listing, go for it. Okay, when I do that, you'll notice it auto-filled all this information in. Excuse me. Right, this was blank before I selected a listing, and now it auto-fills that. So when we go to create a transaction, it will pull all that information in. Now that brings me to my next point of what if you do this after the room is already created? All right, so now I'll walk you through this. So this is in the details section of the room, guys, and this is where you can edit any information about the opportunity. You can edit the name of the opportunity. Anytime you see these pencil icons in Command, that always gives you the option to edit. But how you get into DocuSign is from the document section specifically. All right, so from that document section specifically, I am given the option to start a transaction. All right, if you have already started a transaction, it would say go to transaction. All right, but in this case, I'll click start a transaction. And because I have both DocuSign and .loop linked to Command, it'll give me the option to select either one. But please just know if you have both options as well, once you select one option, there's no going back. Okay, it'll stay linked with DocuSign or .loop moving forward. All right, so in that case, I picked DocuSign. Since I'm on a team, it's asking me if I want to add other team members. Okay, so if you don't have that pop up and you're not on a team, that's normal. But if you are on a team, you can add other team members to your opportunity. I'm sorry, to your DocuSign room. And I'll click confirm and sync. So this, especially if you're not a team, this might be what you're staring at right now. The first time that you go into DocuSign each day, it will prompt you to log in for security purposes. So your DocuSign password is one that you'll want to keep, just a heads up, because you will need that daily. And then once you log in once, it stays logged in. Okay, so I have this created, right? That was created from my opportunity. It has the opportunity name at the top, and it has the listing information there, right? That was the listing that I linked the opportunity to. So now if I go to the details section of my DocuSign room, I will see that property information there. And also my client's information pulling over from Command. If you are not signed, I got a question in the chat, how do you sign up for DocuSign? You will want to make sure you are signing up for DocuSign from the Command settings specifically, where we started class. If you need a DocuSign account set up, guys, feel free to email support@scottleroymarketing.com. We're happy to do it for you. Please just make sure, and I know this is going to sound weird, do not go to DocuSign.com to create an account. That messes it up because it creates a non-KW DocuSign account. So if you still need a DocuSign account set up, that needs to be set up from the Command settings specifically so that it's a KW DocuSign account. And if you need us to set that up, shoot an email to support@scottleroymarketing.com. Let us know your Command login and password and the email address that you'd like to use for DocuSign, and we can set that up for you. That's no problem. Okay, so back to how DocuSign autofills your information. So you'll see on the details section, right, all this pulled over from the opportunity. With that being said, if you update anything in the opportunity moving forward, so I'm switching tabs, and I don't want to confuse anyone, but I just want to let you know that the Command document, so your opportunity, will be a separate tab than DocuSign. And I'll explain how the two work together, excuse me. But just notice on the top of your screen, right on the top of your browser, you'll have two tabs, one that has a KW logo and one that has the DocuSign yellow down arrow logo. So I'm switching back to Command. You can stay on DocuSign. I'm just going to explain a few things to you guys. So in this document section of Command, I just want to point out the sync transaction button here. So if you were to update any information in the details section of your opportunity here, or even the contact, I've seen this be necessary. If you click sync transaction right here, it will sync all the details over to your DocuSign room. So all these details will autofill onto your forms moving forward, okay? Now, just one more thing, one more distinction I want to give you guys between how does the document section of the opportunity and how does DocuSign work together, right? Because a little confusing, and I was pretty confused about this at the beginning. I just want to point out that there is a document section of your opportunity, and there's also a document section of your DocuSign room. Okay, so that's confusing. Let me explain that to you guys. So DocuSign, in the document section of DocuSign specifically, that's where I am now, this is being used to pull in forms, type in your forms, and send them off for electronic signatures. Okay, so DocuSign is being used between the agent and the client to get electronic signatures. Whereas the document section of command of your opportunity is being used to add your executed forms to submit to your market center for review. Okay, so you'll see a checklist option on the left-hand side here that will give you different checklists. And this is where you would add your forms, add your executed forms to submit to the MC for review. So the opportunity document section is being used between the agent and your market center so they can do compliance review on your file and give you that beautiful commission check. All right, and I'll explain how to do that later in class. I just want to explain the differentiation between the two because I thought that was helpful clarification when I learned that. All right, so document section, that's how you submit to the MC for review, for compliance review. Document section of your DocuSign room is how we get electronic signatures. All right. All right, so now that we are in the document section, gotcha. So I got a question, if there are more than 2 sellers, how will the other seller's information be entered in a DocuSign, right? Because in the details section, this is actually raises a good point. So in the details section of your room, I also want to tell you guys this is where I would recommend putting in your client's information. So in theory, that should pull over straight from command. But let's say in command, right, I didn't indicate a seller too. So I can always edit this information by clicking edit up here and adding the second client here. Now with this being said, the reason I wanted to recommend you guys doing it here instead of the people section at the top, so let me save that. So sorry, that was a little fast. So once you enter in any contact information on the right-hand side or edit any of this, right, this all autofills on your forms. You can click save on the very bottom right. Right, and so the reason I would recommend putting your clients in the details section over the people section, right, which is like dot loop, so I used to do it like that. The people section will send your clients an email, and I don't like that, right? When I add my clients in, I'm usually adding them to a blank room that I need to get prepared. I don't want my clients to be emailed, being invited to this DocuSign room until I'm ready to send them forms. So if you add them to the people section, they'll receive an email from DocuSign inviting them to this room, which will be blank if you're not ready for it. So that's why I'd recommend putting your clients in the details section instead on the right-hand side, so that they will autofill onto your forms. Now with the question of what do you do if there's a third seller, there is an option. We can add an extra initial box. So we can add a third initial box to your form, and I'll show you how to do that in the envelope. So that's one option, or you can also, I know depending on your area, there are additional signature addendums. So it's a form that would allow for extra signatures. If you're not sure on that second part, because there's a form for that in North Carolina where I am. So I would check in with your broker in charge and how they want you to handle a third signer. However, there is a way to add initial boxes to a form, and I'll show you that coming up here soon. Okay, document section of my DocuSign room. So that's where I am here, documents section of my room. And I'm going to add in forms. So I'm clicking add on the top right. Okay guys, and for this next little part, brace yourself. It's going to be a little confusing because it looks slightly different for everyone. And since everyone's forms are from different sources, just hang tight and we'll try to get through this together, okay? So on the top right where it says add, you have the main options you'll want to use is the computer option to pull in any PDFs, and we'll go over that next. But for now, let's talk about the DocuSign forms. Okay, so the DocuSign forms are your interactive forms, meaning that you can just start typing in on your forms. That's what we like. So let's go ahead and click on the DocuSign forms option. Now remember, these next steps are going to look a little different for everyone, so hang tight. If you are now getting a box that says to put in your NERDS ID, so it says something like, you know, the Realtor Association, put in your NERDS ID. Some boards do require that to have access to your forms. However, a majority of them do not. So if you are seeing a box that is prompting you to, you know, hook your DocuSign account up to the Realtor Association, you can click a blue link on the bottom right that says skip this step for now. And you can always go back, don't worry. But I would recommend skipping that step for now unless you know that your board needs it, just so you can see if your forms are already available. All right, so again, if you're getting that screen, click that blue little link that says skip the extra verification. I'll have to read back what it says. And you should see what I see on my screen now. So from here, so that top option, top drop down, we have two options, DocuSign Forms Library. If I keep the library option selected and click on the second option, it will show me any libraries that I have. So these are my boards, my association, so that's a full library for me of all of my forms. However, if I click on the first drop down again, if you change the first drop down to DocuSign Forms Group, then you will have two different options. I'm sorry, you'll have different options in that drop down. So in the second drop, I personally prefer the groups option. So if I click on that groups option, it then breaks it down, all my forms, to smaller groups. And these groups are set up by your office staff, just a heads up. Market Center, so these groups were created by my office staff to help me find my forms a little easier. So I would go ahead and click on one of those group options there. And this will take some playing around with, all right, to find your forms and get used to it on here. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed looking for your forms, just know you're not alone and it will get easier. Okay, so if you're clicking on one of these groups, you can go ahead and either search for the form that you're looking for or scroll. And I can simply click on the form names, the checkbox to the left, and click add to add those forms right away. All right, so now I have my forms added in, right? And so these are the interactive forms. And we did this just in case I lost anyone, because I know that was quite a process. It'll get easier, I promise. But if I click on add and go to DocuSign Forms, that's how I pull my interactive forms specifically. So now if I were to click on any of these forms, so I have a question, would this be the same for Canadians using web forms? I am not familiar with web forms. I imagine it's similar to zip forms. If you don't mind emailing support@scottleroymarketing.com, we'd be happy to take a look at that. We can see if there is a connection to link web forms to DocuSign and look into that. So Nalini, if you don't mind emailing support@scottleroymarketing.com, we can take care of that for you. All right, so now that I have the form open, you'll notice this looks a lot like DocuSign, where I can click to start typing, and I have a bunch of information already auto-filled. So when you open the form, you'll notice this autofill. Something I just want to let you guys know about, because it gets a little confusing, is the forms autofill back and forth to the details section. So for example, if I were to write the word "and" right here, it would change his name for all future forms to Michael Scott and. so that doesn't work that well. So just a heads up, I just want to let you guys know that. So you'll notice if you hover your mouse over some of these forms, it shows you where it's mapped to, right? That's how DocuSign knows where to autofill this information. But it autofills back and forth. So if you change one of the autofilled fields, it will update in the details section for all future forms. In theory, that makes sense, but just watch out for that so you're not doing things like I did and adding and messing that up. Okay. Now from here, I want to point out on the top right, the document actions option. And that looks like an icon of a piece of paper with a folded ear. I just want to let you guys know that you do have these options available here, especially if you prefer to bring your forms on an appointment with you to have them hand signed. You could come in here, type up the entire form, save it first. Okay, I'll go over these directions again. And then you would have the option to download or print that. Let's talk about the save and close option. If you're taking notes on today's class, this is another noteworthy moment. Before doing anything from the document actions, make sure you save the form first. So for example, I went through and filled out the whole form on my first time using DocuSign, didn't know that I needed to click save and close first, and just went to DocuSign next, and guess what? I lost all my work. So don't do what I did, and always click save and close first. So if you filled out the entire form, you went through, filled it all out, first, click save and close. Why it doesn't tell you you're about to lose all your work and hate your life, I don't know, but keep an eye out for that. Always click save and close first. All right, so now I'm going to open it back up, and now it will give me the option to DocuSign or print those, right? So again, if you prefer to print out your documents but like to hand type them in because they look more professional, you absolutely can. You can type up your entire form. That's step 1. Step 2, save and close. Step 3, pull the form back open and come up here to document actions to print or download that. I guess if you are finding that you do not have access to any forms, this is when things get tricky, just because every board requires something slightly different. So if you do not have access to forms, if you could email support@scottleroymarketing.com, what they'll need to fix this, we need your command login and password, DocuSign login and password, your NERDS ID, and association name. So that's 4 things. If you do not have forms in your account, we can definitely look into that. I put it in the chat what we'd need to troubleshoot that for you. So feel free to shoot us an email real quick and we can help you with that. Okay guys, so just some basic information from here, how you would go then to get the form actually signed. I'm just going to do this quickly. I do go over this in detail in the DocuSign 101 class. But to get this actually electronically signed, right, because if you scroll down, there's nothing on the initials, right? There's no fields here. We have to pull that into an envelope first. So let's take a look at how that process looks. So I'll go ahead and click on Document Actions, and then DocuSign. From here, and if you're new to DocuSign, okay, I just want to give you an example that helped me with the envelope section here, because Dotloop didn't have this. So it's kind of like, what is this section? So to make sense of this, think of the envelope like snail mail, okay? You have a physical envelope, you stuff your form in it, right? Here's the form that we're adding. If you'd like, you can add other forms from the room that we're in, or you can even add templates, and we'll go over templates, don't you worry. And then all we have to do once we put the form in the envelope is we just need to add recipients, right? Pretty typical to snail mail. All right, so in the add recipients section, if you could scroll down under add recipient, we want to choose the pre-tagged roles option so that DocuSign knows where to make that person sign. So since we added our client to the details section here, when I click pre-tagged roles, I will see them as an option when I click on these drop downs. and I can go ahead and select my clients. So if I lost anyone on that, all I did was click Add Recipient on the envelope. And then the first one, pre-tagged roles, is what you'll want to select so that DocuSign knows where to allocate these signatures. I'm going to put myself as a listing agent and click Add Selected. Okay, so a cool thing to note about DocuSign as well are these numbers on the left-hand side. So this is a cool feature that Dotloop did not have. So let's say you want your transaction coordinator to receive a copy of the executed form after it comes back signed, right? So there's no way to like notify your transaction. Like you can't set up notifications through DocuSign for your transaction coordinator. That would just go to your primary email. However, this would be the best way to notify your transaction coordinator, or maybe if you want like the mortgage provider to be notified once they've executed the offer to purchase, this method would work as well. Okay, so how you would do that. So since I have these labeled as 1, the form will go to these clients first. I want to add a recipient to add my transaction coordinator or mortgage provider, or maybe the parents want to take a look at it after the form is signed, whatever the case may be. I clicked Add Recipients, and this time I did email address. I'm just going to manually add this person in. So I got Tammy Transactions here. We got their email address. Okay. Now this is the most important part of the whole step. The whole process here is we need to go ahead and change this number on the left-hand side to a 2. Now what this is saying is once everyone labeled as a 1 has signed the form, it will then go to the person labeled 2. So there's a lot of great uses for this. I really like this feature. Really like it for notifying my transaction coordinator. So again, let me say that one more time. As long as you have this person labeled 2, it will go to that person only after everyone labeled with a 1 receives and signs it. So it will go to all these people at once. And once it's all signed, it will go to step 2, right? And you'll see on the left-hand side, you can adjust their role, their privilege. So if they don't need to sign it and they just need to view it, that's fine too. But just to clarify something about DocuSign, is the form will not come back signed to your DocuSign room until all parties have completed it. So if you want, let's say, the mom and dad to be able to view the form, and you send it to the mom and dad as well, if you're representing a younger couple, let's say, but the mom and dad never open the form and they are on here as needs to view, you will not receive that back to your room, okay? So that the executed form will only come back to your DocuSign room once all parties have completed their task. Just a heads up on that, all right? So you're not confused when that doesn't come back to you and one of your clients says they already signed that. Alrighty, so now I can go ahead and click the next button on the top right. And guys, just a heads up from here, you can always save and close this as well. So if you're not ready to send this off quite yet, you just want to be prepared, you can go ahead and do that ahead of time and click save and close. But in this case, I'll click next on the top right. And since this was an interactive form, right, and what I mean by interactive is we were just able to type in this form, right? I didn't have to do anything to start typing. Since it was an interactive form, when I go into the envelope, it adds the initial and signature boxes to the form automatically. Okay, please note that is only the case for interactive forms. The forms that I can just start typing in. If the form does not allow you to just start typing, the initial boxes will not automatically display. And I'll show you that example next, so hold tight on questions for that. But basically, when I get to this step of the process, I like to scroll through to make sure I see my initial boxes already there, right? DocuSign did that for me. I just like to cross-check it. And I also like to cross-check my recipient preview on the top right here, because it will allow me to view that as both of my clients. So I can make sure that my client will be able to sign the form. All right, so since I'm able to go ahead and do this, so this is what it would look like for the client, all right? That's what I'm looking at. And then once I'm satisfied, I can X out of that. Yeah, a question came in. I left the other, right? I added a spouse to the transaction. The reason she's not popping up is because I accidentally left her as needs to view. So if you change this, you know, she won't have the signing privilege. So I can just quickly come fix that to needs to sign, and then I will see both of them on there. I think hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if not, though. What the heck? All right. So now that I have, right, all I had to do here, I just like to check over its work. So I like to do the recipient preview and then click send. Great question. The question was, if you click save and close, can you guys see this on my screen? This yellow line keeps drawing on my screen. I'm not sure what's going on. A little creepy. Anyway, yes, yeah, so as far as saving the envelope. So if you were to save this, you can absolutely come back to the envelope to make changes to it before sending it. So let me show you how you would do that. So if you were to save and close it, I'm going to do that. Where it goes is the envelope section of your DocuSign room. So in order to get back to that draft, so DocuSign doesn't as much draft documents as it drafts envelopes. And again, right, that's anytime you're going to send something out. And I realize it's a little different than .loop, so it might take your brain a little bit to take that in. I know it did me. But in your envelopes, that's where you'll actually find your drafts. So I could simply click on that to make any changes. Yeah, I don't know what this line is, guys. This is super weird, this yellow line. I have two that randomly got drawn on my computer. So there might be a ghost in my computer. We'll find out. Anyway, more importantly though, now that I have opened this back up, how I would send it is I would just click next on the top right. And then press send. Because this was an interactive form, right, one I could just type in, I don't have to add any fields on the left-hand side. I can though, and I'll show you how to do that next. So hold tight to these questions. That's exciting. So for now, since this was more lines, since I have all the fields already added here, I can go ahead and click send. You know, guys, maybe it's me. I bet you can draw on Zoom. I bet I'm like drawing or something. Sorry, I'm new to Zoom. I'm sure you guys know how that is, having your clients make you Zoom. But maybe that's why I'm drawing these lines. Maybe. Yeah, it must be. Well, for now, you guys can just look at these pretty yellow lines. Thanks for helping me brainstorm and feel less freaked out by a computer. I mean, a ghost in my computer. All right. Guys, so let's take a look at the next example. So we're switching gears just slightly. We're going to talk about PDFs now, and a couple different things that you can do with PDFs, how to get PDFs in your DocuSign room. Clear all drawings. Beautiful. Whoever just said the annotate thing, you're a genius. I got it off. Don't tell anyone that it took me that long to figure out. All right, guys. So now that we are in... Struggle is so real. Okay, so now that we're back in our DocuSign rooms, if you could join me going to the document section. In this next example, what we're going to be talking about is adding a PDF to your room, and let's talk about times we would need to do that. So let's say the agent on the other side does not use DocuSign. So they just sent you an email with the PDF of the form attached. Right? So in your email, you now have a PDF. It's signed by their clients, and you now need to get that signed by your clients. Okay? Let's take a look at editing PDFs, and then we'll take a look at different ways that you can get a PDF into your DocuSign room. There's some fun tips on that. So if I come up to add on the top right, so it's the same process anytime you want to add forms. So I'm in computer. So when I click add from computer, it will start browsing my computer, of course. So in this example, you would need to save the attachment to your computer first, right? So if you receive that in an email, save the attachment to your computer. Then you'll able to double click on it and pull it into your DocuSign room. So in case that was a little fast for anyone, all I did was went to add on the top right, clicked computer, and then double clicked on the form to bring it in. That is a big basics that you'll want to have down. Adding PDFs to your DocuSign room, that will really come in handy if you need to get signatures added to that. So if I go ahead and click on that PDF that I brought in, and because we're going to talk about the differences in these icons, please notice that the difference between the PDF icon and the form icon helps you easily determine which one I can just click and start typing in, right? The interactive forms have this blue form logo, PDF has the red logo. So what that means, essentially, a PDF by nature is not editable. So if I click on that, you'll notice you can't just start typing in the fields. However, DocuSign is very cool and does allow tools to be able to edit PDFs. So on the top right, we're coming back up here, the document actions. And just to note a couple features that PDFs have that the interactive forms do not. You do have the option to split PDFs. Right? And we have a little tip video if you need that. But let's say you you scanned your entire listing file into your DocuSign room and you need to split that up. DocuSign does have a split feature here. So I can go ahead and see all the forms. Let's say I want it to be two different forms, especially, in my area, I have to have a receipt of earnest money signed after the offer to purchase is signed. So we usually have to split off the last page in order to do that, to get that second for the earnest money receipt signed. So if that is the case, if for any reason you need to split up a document for an extra signature or split up your listing package, you do have the option to do that right from DocuSign, which is a very cool feature. All right, wonderful. So you can see on the left-hand side, all I did there, I was adding in the names of each document and the page number that I would like to split. And then it splits that up for you. All right. And yes, I'll be showing after we learn how to edit PDFs, I'm going to show you how to email in PDFs. I'm going to show you how to email PDFs into your DocuSign room and how you can email in an entire email chain between you and your client, and it turns it into a PDF in your DocuSign room, so you can keep that forever. So that's next. Okay, if anyone missed that split feature, okay, I clicked on the form to get to it. Sorry, let me go back. But in order to use the split feature, click on the PDF to open that. It only works for PDFs. So you will not see this feature if the form is fillable. So if I click split, on the left-hand side, it gives me the option. So if I want to split this into two, I can click Add Document on the left-hand side. If I want to split into three, go for it, keep going. And you'll see right here, we need to name it something different. Right, I'm naming the two different documents because it's going to split it. And then let's say I want this one to be pages 1 through 10, and you can see it highlights it blue. And then also the last one. All right, guys. So moving on here. So if I take this into signatures, how I would do that is click on the document again, come up to Document Actions, and let's go to DocuSign. Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, I'm going to go through this part pretty fast because we just did an envelope. So hopefully you guys are feeling pretty comfortable, right? This is an envelope. All I have to do is add in my clients here. So I'm doing that. I'm just scrolling down. So the main step that you have to do here is add recipients. You don't really have to do anything except add your recipients to the envelope, which makes sense. If you put a blank envelope in the mail, it's not going to go anywhere. So if I go ahead and click the room participants, go ahead and click the clients that need to receive that and click add selected. I totally know that was fast, guys. Bear with me here. And if you have questions, I have short little tip videos and can answer any questions that you might have. And we'll click next. So again, we're just adding the recipients and clicking next. But this is where things get exciting. All right, so on the left-hand side, you'll see a bunch of different fields that you can add in. So for example, if your client needs to initial this field, you can go ahead and add initial boxes to the field. Something that is different than dot loop that you'll need to pay attention to is all of these fields are coordinated to the color assigned to the client. So Holly Flax is yellow, so she has a yellow initial box. If I need to sign a field for Michael Scott to sign, my second client, I need to switch to his name, which will then turn all of my fields blue to lay that next field. Okay, so the colors really matter, which brings me to my next point of when you add a text field to a PDF. Okay. For whatever reason, you have a PDF and I need to, let's say I want to make an edit to it. Let's say the closing date is changing. Or here, just for ease. Let's say I put my client's name as Tony Stark, but I need to change that to Anthony Stark. Here's how you would make edits to that. And this, along with the question to how do you make corrections after a document is signed, this kind of piggybacks on that, and I'm going to show you that too. But it will be the same process. So pay attention here. If you have a question on how to edit a signed form, it will turn that signed form into a PDF when it comes back signed, and I'll show you that so it makes sense because it is different than dot loop. But when an executed form comes back to your room, it comes back as a PDF, right? Just like this, it's a PDF, meaning it's not fillable and the signatures are on there forever. They can't get erased, right? That's what a PDF is. So if you need to make changes to a signed PDF, this is how you would make those changes. But I will walk you through that a little more full circle. But pay attention to this part if you have that question. So let's say I need to make changes to the name, whatever it is I need to make changes to. The first thing I probably want to do is actually add a strike through. The strike through is the only field I really ever go away from this standard fields option. So on the far left, you'll see a little gray toolbar. Really the only time I play with this toolbar is to get the line option. It's the main time at least. So this line, this is where the strike through is. So click on that little pencil. It's under markup tools. The only one, lonely tool here. Go ahead and click on it. It will follow my mouse so I can click to click. Right, so I'm just clicking my mouse, dragging my mouse, and clicking it again to drop it. So I striked out the incorrect info. Then I'm switching, so on the gray box, or gray bar rather, right? We were in markup tools. You know, I've been mentioning noteworthy moments. I would write down where to get to this line because it's hidden and you're probably going to lose it next time. I know I did. So write down how you got to that strike through. And then we are switching back to standard fields, which is where we generally stay. Right, lots of fun field options here. In this case, I want to add a text box because I want to fill in the correct client's name. So I clicked on it on the left-hand side, click to drop it. Now, remember how I said that the blue dot indicates that the field is designated to that client? So this is different than dot loop and very important for editing PDFs. When you lay a text field, it's blue. What that means is this client has to fill it out. That's not necessarily what I want from this text field. I want to fill this out as the agent. So on the right-hand side, as long as this field is clicked, you'll see this editing, the text box. You need to If this is a field that you are filling in as the agent, you need to uncheck the required field option and click on read only, okay, so that they cannot change it. So let's say I now want this to be under Anthony Stark instead. So again, let me say that one more time because it's just so important. Anytime you lay a text box, if it's a text box that you're going to fill in as the agent, you need to uncheck the required field and check read only. A cool note on that to save you some time, you can click save as a custom field. So you can save it. You can actually add, text to it too. But I could save this field. Let's say I want this to be my agent fill in field. And I got here by clicking save as custom field in case anyone missed where I clicked to get to this box. So save as custom field. So I can name this the agent fill in field. Okay, it's a terrible name, but whatever you want to name it. And what I'm doing here is I want to be able to quickly add a text box that is for me specifically, and I don't have to click on those checkboxes every time. So I have that indicated here. If this is a text box that you want to have the address of your market center in so that you can always quickly grab that, or your license number, right? You can include that license number right here so that you can always grab that field and lay the text box. And I'll show you where these are. But you can add in a value. So that's what it's saying, initial value. You can add in words. You can always change it once you fill it in or bring it in, but that'll at least give you, a basis to work off. All right, so you'll see a bunch of stuff that you can edit as you go down. Feel free to play with that, but just so you know, if you do utilize any of the custom fields, which is a great time saver, those are on the second option down. So back to this left gray toolbar, custom fields is the second option down. And so now when I click the agent fill-in field, I click and it already gives me, the settings that I want. Now, one last tip on adding text boxes. If you are setting up, let's say, a property disclosure, for example, that your clients need to fill in, I have a couple notes on that. But first of all, in order for them to be able to fill in the property disclosure, you will have to lay the text boxes on the PDF, first of all. But secondly, if it is a field that your clients, you want them to both be able to collaborate on, there is a collaboration option. So on the right-hand side, as long as you have a field selected, a text field, you'll see the collaboration option. And it says recipients can collaborate. That's what you want to check on. Okay, recipients can collaborate, and that will allow both of your clients to fill in the property disclosure. Right? Off default, the text boxes, right, are always assigned to one client or the other. If you want them to collaborate, you have to tell the system. Okay, that's my last note on that. All right, and then we can click send if we are ready to. So I'm going to show you guys real quick though what it looks like when a form comes back signed, and talk a little bit more about editing those signed forms, because it is different than .loop. Anything that was different in .loop, honestly, just threw me for a loop when I transitioned to DocuSign. No pun intended. But yes, I promise if you're probably feeling a lot of the same thing I did. When I transitioned from .loop to DocuSign, I was just sure DocuSign didn't work because it didn't work like .loop did. But there are little tips and tricks that will make your DocuSign experience easier. So if you run into those weird little glitches that you're just like, this is it, the system doesn't work, email me. Shoot me an email, support. I'll give you my email. So if you ever need me, I've probably run into the thing that is making your hair want to be pulled out. Put attention, my name, Leah, and I'm more than happy to help you guys with this. I've taken on all the fun DocuSign training here. So shoot me an email. I've probably run into that too, and probably have a short 10-minute tip video on how to get around it. I'm happy to help you guys. Okay, so what I'm showing you now, and you can just watch on my screen unless you have a signed form, I'm going to show you what it looks like when a form comes signed back to your DocuSign room, and how to go about handling your signed forms. Okay, so I'm in a different DocuSign room. And if I scroll down, so remember how I mentioned these icons, right? The form icon means that's an interactive form. Again, meaning I can just click to start typing in the form. That's where we started in class. We have the PDF icon, which means it's not fillable. And then we have our favorite icon, which is, hey guys, will you confirm that you can still hear me? I was just notified I was signed out of my Zoom account, but I think I'm still signed in. If you don't mind just shooting a, thank you guys. Thank you. Just didn't want to teach to no one. Okay, so back to the sign thing. So this icon indicates the form is obviously signed, but the reason to focus on this even further, so this is the original form. So this form right here is the interactive form that I just typed in that I brought into my room first. Okay? I filled out the form, sent it to my client, and it came back as a separate form. Okay, that is something that is very different than .loop. Very important for you guys to know. Once a form is signed, it comes back as a separate form. So you'll always have two separate forms in your room. One is the original with the blue form icon, and one is the signed copy of it, that if I click on it, it's a PDF that has the signatures, okay? And again, right, what I mean by PDF, it's not editable, which is a beautiful thing when there's signatures, because that means that the signatures cannot be erased. There's nothing you can do to mess it up bad enough that will erase the signatures on a PDF. That's a beautiful sentence in my opinion. But to edit it further, guys, you can edit this just like we did that last PDF. So when you have a signed form, there's two ways you can go about editing it, right? So one is to open the signed copy. That's where I am now, right? This is the signed copy. I can click on the DocuSign option, right? It'll take it into my envelope, and then I'm taken to the next screen where I can add the text fields and any other fields that I want to add from the left-hand side. That's where we just were, right? So that's how you would go about editing a signed PDF. I have I sent out on those notes I sent out at the beginning of class, I have a tip video on there, I believe, on just signed forms and how to handle that. So if you want to walk through that, feel free. So that's one way you can edit the signed copy as a PDF, or you can go back and edit the original. Okay, so if you want to, you can pull open the original, which is the one with the blue forms icon. That will be the interactive form, right? The one I can just start typing on, but it won't have the signatures. So you'd have to resend it out for signatures. The reason I wanted to explain that part to you guys as well is we get a question quite a bit. If you go to try to add a second copy of the form, like let's say this one's trash, it didn't work out, I need to add a second copy, it will not let you add a second copy of the same form to your DocuSign room, because it either wants you to edit the original interactive form and resend for signatures, or edit the signed PDF. I have so many copies of the same form because I was practicing with these signatures. This is my practice room. I always practice with cool tips I learned before showing you guys. Yeah, so sorry if that was confusing. Oh, and no, that's an even better question. So I just told you guys that you can't bring the same copy of the form in more than once, and you're asking why do I have the same form? What I mean is you cannot pull the same interactive form in. Sorry, that was a great question. These are all signed because I was practicing. So if it's a PDF, it doesn't care. You can pull in the same PDF a million times. You just can't pull in more than one interactive form. Hopefully that clarified. All right, guys. What I want to show you now is how to email into DocuSign, which is a very cool feature that DocuSign has. So bear with me. If you can stick around for about 10 more minutes, I'm going to show you this and how to add forms to your opportunity to submit for review. Shouldn't take me longer than 10 minutes. I apologize, guys, for going over, but there are lots of fun tricks with DocuSign that I'm clearly overexcited about sharing. Okay, so you can watch on my screen if you would like to for the email portion, because I do have my email open. And in the notes I sent you, I also have a short video on how to do this. So you can do it with my tip video, and you can watch now if you would prefer. So what I'm going to show you is how you can email a PDF right into your DocuSign room. Okay. So before we get going on that, though, we need to take a look at our DocuSign email address. So if you could join me by clicking on, it'll either be your headshot on the top right or your initials in a circle. And click switch to, click preferences. So from your headshot or initials on the top right, click preferences. headshot or initials, and then preferences on the top right of your DocuSign account. And now we are going to inbox details on the left-hand side. So you actually have a DocuSign email address, which is probably something super crazy out of the box. So I wanted to show you guys how you can edit it here, because you can save this email address. So it always ends with @mail.docusign.net, and I will show you what that does in just a second here. But for now, what you need to know is I would change this to something instead of a bunch of numbers. Change that to maybe your last name, whatever you'd like it to be. You can also get a fax number, guys, if you would like that. And we'll click Save Changes. So now that I have this email address, technically, so there's two different ways that we can email into DocuSign. So you need to save this. I would recommend, saving that in your address book. I mean, once you email it once, Gmail will remember it. But you need this email address. And if you email a PDF to this email address, so I would like to highlight the part of that sentence, if you email a PDF, so if the email has an attachment on it, and you send it to this email, it will go to the inbox right here. Okay, I was practicing this earlier and I left it here so you could see what that dot looks like, a notification that's there. Let's take a look at how that's done. So feel free to watch on my screen, but if I go to the inbox, I do see my current email address on the top. This is my DocuSign email. It's the email address I can use to email into DocuSign. I'm going to go over to my email. I have it in a separate tab. And I have an email with the attached PDF. So you can do this in any email system. I'm in my KW Gmail account. So if you click on forward, right, so what I'm doing here is I am forwarding the email with the attachment to it. This only works if there is an attachment to the email. In the to field, I am going to put in that DocuSign email address. Okay. I'm going to so in the to field, so I'm forwarding this email with an attachment to my DocuSign email address. I'm going to double check it's on there as an attachment. If there's no attachment, nothing will happen at all. All right. So there we go. I see that was forwarded. All right. And it typically takes, I don't know, about 30 seconds or so to come over. So I'm just switching tabs, not to throw anyone off, but my email and my DocuSign account are in two separate tabs here. So if I come back to my inbox and refresh this, okay, I would have to refresh my page for that to pop up. Just a heads up, guys. If you're not familiar with how to refresh your page, you would do that by clicking on the arrow in a circle icon that's typically on the top left of your browser, maybe next to the back button. All right, and you can see that maybe took 45 seconds or so, but here is that new emailed copy of the form. Okay. And I can now move it to my DocuSign room. And before I show you how, let me talk about a situation this would be useful for you. So if you save this DocuSign email address in your phone, let's say, you're on the go, you're out showing, you receive an email from the other agent with the offer attached, signed by their clients. Okay, just so you can make sure it's in your DocuSign account when you get back to your computer, you could forward that email and it would to your DocuSign email address, and it would forward it right into your inbox so that next time that you're at a computer, you can quickly come to your inbox instead of having to look through all your emails to find that offer and download it, etc., etc. You can go to the inbox here, find that offer that you emailed yourself, and then select the move option on the top. I think that's what we need to do. All right, so you'll notice on the top here, so these icons only display if I click a checkbox. Just if you're not seeing those, that's why. So if I click one of the checks on the top left of the form name, it then gives me the option to move that form or copy it into my DocuSign room. So when I select that option, I now have the option to select one of my rooms to put these forms in right away. Okay. So So now that has been added into those forms. So that is how you can quickly, when you're on the go, forward a form to your DocuSign email address, and it will be in your inbox waiting for you. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Let me now show you how you can email directly to a DocuSign room. Pretty cool feature. Okay, so in here, so in this document section, what we need in order to email a PDF into a DocuSign room specifically is we need this ID number. So whatever room, oh, I copied it. So in that last step, a question came in if I copied or move it. It's totally up to you if you want to copy or move it. I mean, I usually move it just so it's no longer in my inbox, but either option will work for you. Yeah, no problem. All right. So document section where we have this ID number. So, and I've had the best success copying like the entire section here, including ID colon, the number sign, and then the ID. So copy the entire thing, ID and the actual number here, if you're following along, that is, or you can just watch on my screen. And so now I'm going back to my emails. And when I mostly use this feature is if I'm at my computer and I have my email open, pretty much like this, right? I have my email open. I just need to get that form quickly into my DocuSign room. This is the quickest, most efficient way to get it directly in your DocuSign room is by going to the form. Again, you need to go to an email that has an attachment specifically. If it doesn't have an attachment, nothing happens. All right, and you need to forward that. So this is where it's a little tricky, but once you get the hang of it, you'll be good. So you need to change the subject, and if you're using a KW Gmail email address, how you change the subject of a reply email or forwarded email is you need to click on the down or the arrow to the left of the word to, so we can edit the subject. We have to add that room ID to the subject line so DocuSign knows which room to put it in. So I click to forward it. I'll show you that again in case I lost anyone. But now I'm going to paste in that room ID. And I'll show you this again while we wait for it to load. I'm going to double check that the PDF's in there and click send. And I need the recipient, which I forget every time, is the DocuSign email address. And see, now that I did it one time, I sent myself that email one time. Now it's just in my address book on Gmail, so I can always just start typing in my name and it'll pop up. Click send. So you don't really have to remember it. Sorry, to clarify, this feature you can use with any email account. GoDaddy, Yahoo, any email account. It'll just obviously look different than my screen, but when you're doing it, just make sure you know that you have to change the subject line. Yeah, no problem. It's a very cool feature. Okay, so now just to overview the steps I did real quick while we wait for that to load. All I did, I found the email that has the attachment. I'm going to forward it in whatever way your email system allows you to. Gmail does that by clicking on the dots on the far right and forward. I need to edit the subject. So I'm going to do that in Gmail specifically by clicking on the down arrow and hit edit subject. Sorry, I don't know off the top of my head for other email systems how you would edit the subject. But if you Google it, I bet Google will know. All right, and all I did was put in that ID number, right? This is the ID number that I got from the top of the room. I'll show you again. We put in our DocuSign email address and click send. So now, when I go back to my DocuSign room, so I'm switching back, not to confuse anyone, I do have to refresh my page, right? It won't just pop in. You always have to refresh. If you're on a PC, you can do Control-R to refresh. If you're on a Mac, you can do Command-R. Or you can use this arrow in a circle on the top right to refresh. That works too. Okay, and now I see that my emailed offer to purchase is right here. And sorry, I should have used a different room. I was practicing with this earlier to make sure that I could actually get it to work. That's why there's a couple, so you can disregard. All right, but you can see that it just pops on in, right? It ignores anything in the body of the email and then just puts the PDF in the actual DocuSign room. So that's the quickest way if you're at a computer. It's just the most efficient, quickest way to get that PDF from your email to your DocuSign room. Other than that, if you're on the go, the other option to email in your inbox might work better for you. Last thing I'm going to show you on the email front is you can email. I just found out this feature maybe a couple months ago and was very excited. You can email an entire strand into your DocuSign room. So the reason that this is so important, it's like I have this little test right here. The reason this is so important, right? If you want to hang on to all email strands that you have with your clients, God forbid, any legislation, any acts, if they try to come back at you for anything, right? You need your records to be solid. So with that being said, you have 9 million emails in your email account. So let me show you how you can forward maybe important email threads about negotiations or whatever it might be to your DocuSign room, so you can always hang on to that. All right, so and how we do that. So first thing that we're going to do is we are going to pull up any of the strands that we want to go ahead and forward. So any of the email threads, and we're going to forward that email thread. So I'm on Gmail, so I'm going to click the forward option. So I'm trying to forward this entire email thread. So I'm forwarding the email thread, and we have to change the subject again. Okay, so we're editing the subject. And when you change the subject and you put in that ID number, that's how DocuSign knows which room to go in, that this form needs to go into. All right, so there's that ID number. So that's how DocuSign knows that it needs to go right into this room specifically. You always have to put that in the subject line. But there's an extra step. If it is a email strand, right? Because there's nothing attached necessarily, right? And I kept preaching that to you guys. Something has to be attached. So if you want DocuSign to turn this entire email strand into a PDF, you need to hashtag PDF. Okay, so we're hashtagging the room ID, hashtag PDF. And again, I am putting in my DocuSign email, right? And it's just popping up now because I put it in once. If you're still having to put it in, it'll start popping up, right? So it'll get easier for you on that front. And I can click send. All right, and again, it takes a little bit of time for that to come over, like 45 seconds or so. And then you will see, if I switch over to DocuSign, I usually have to refresh a couple times. I want to say it takes about 45 seconds to a minute, but then you will see that strand right from your DocuSign room. And I love that feature to be able to hang on to all of my records, turn those into PDFs right from here. All right, guys, last thing that I am going over, and that is how to add forms to your opportunity in command. And just heads up, this class is being recorded, and I'll have this up on SLM training within the next 2 hours. I know it's really hard, especially with these advanced tips, to just watch it and take it in. I really have to do it along with the video. So, I'll have this up in just an hour or so you can watch it, you can pause it and follow along. And I'll also resend out my shorter tip videos to you guys that will break down pretty much everything we went over into 10-minute segments, so you can, rewatch the parts that you really want to learn more about. I'll send that in just a minute, so hang tight on that. Okay, so the final step here is we need to add our forms to our DocuSign room. To our document section of your command opportunity in order to submit to your Market Center for review. So far what we have done is we have added our forms, filled them in, and got them signed by our clients. So that's where we're at in this process. Now I need to submit that to my Market Center so I can get that commission check. I think that's why we do this whole real estate thing. So I am switching tabs back to the tab we started on 25 years ago. Okay, the command documents tab. If you lost this tab, no worries. Feel free to just go back to your opportunity, click on it to open it, and go into the document section. Okay, so I mentioned this briefly earlier, but the document section of your opportunity is where you will go to submit to your MC for review. And you'll see a grayed out button right here on the top right. That is what you will click once you add the forms in. So first things first is on the left-hand side, you'll see a checklist. You'll see checklist options. And these checklists are created by your office staff, so this will look different than my screen. But you'll want to go ahead and select a checklist. And you'll see a bunch of form placeholders show up, all right? So these are not the actual forms. It's pretty much a to-do list or a checklist of items of the forms you need in order to receive your commission check. So how you would now add that in, you can add one file at a time, absolutely, guys, on the right-hand side. But instead, I always do attach multiple files at the top. All right, so again, that says attach multiple files is what I clicked on. So we have a couple options here. First of all, it defaults on manual. So if you have these executed forms on your computer, or even, if you can't access them in DocuSign or .loop, just save them to your computer and you can always upload them easily right from here. It'll browse your computer. So that's one way to go about it. However, the easiest and most efficient process of this is to select the DocuSign option. When I select the DocuSign option, it will then give me drop downs to the right of all of the form names, so I can easily click on each of the drop downs and select the form name right from there. Okay, so that is pulling in the executed form right from my DocuSign room. So these on this list here are not just all forms from anywhere, right? These are the forms that are in this DocuSign room specifically. So this is why at the beginning of class, I just want to touch base on this one more time. At the beginning of class, I was really stressing that you need to start your transaction always in command from an opportunity, and then click start a transaction right here to create that DocuSign room. The reason that's so important is if you do it that way, you'll then be able to pull forms easily just by clicking them on a dropdown. And this takes about 30 seconds, all right? So the DocuSign room has to be created from your opportunity by clicking on Start a Transaction. After that, you can absolutely go to realestate.docusign.com directly to log in. Let me send that to you guys. So not DocuSign.com. Do not go to DocuSign.com to log in. But you can go to realestate.docusign.com to log into the room side after you have already started the transaction, okay? So never, ever, ever go to realestate.docusign.com to start the transaction. You would never start the DocuSign room from there. You'll always start it from the command opportunity to make your life so much easier. So hopefully that's clear, guys. But yes, you are able to add that here. And someone asks if you can split the forms, because especially if you add your entire listing packet, right? If the PDF is all in one packet and you need that split, right? You can use that split feature that we saw in DocuSign to split the PDFs in DocuSign before you go ahead and add that to your opportunity. Once I click the attach option, I am then able to click submit to MC on the top right. Don't right now, by the way, though. Your office staff won't like that very much. But that is how you will be submitting to your Market Center for review. The next logical question is, when do I submit to your Market Center for review? And please check with your Market Center staff on their policies. Each policy is different for each Market Center as far as when they want you to be submitting for review. Just to overview that, though, you'll typically want to submit for review once when the listing goes live on the MLS with all your listing paperwork, a second time when it goes under contract with all your executed offer paperwork, and a third time when it closes, right? And it kind of helps that there are 3 different folders so that you know you have to submit to the MC at each stage. Okay? If you're representing the buyer, you would just submit twice, when it goes under contract and when it closes. All right, but along those lines, just a heads up, the green sheet has now moved to command. It's now called the commissions tab right here. It's commission request. Right? So when you go under contract, generally you'll need to fill out a commission request as well to tell your office how you're getting paid. Okay, and I have a short little video on that as well. I'm going to shoot that over in just a moment here. And if you're watching this recorded, I'll have this all in the description of the YouTube video. All right, guys, I know that was a lot to take in. I know your brain probably feels like it's going to explode, but in the meantime, let me know how I can help you. Feel free to email us support@scottleroymarketing.com. I would be more than happy to help you through your processes here. You can put attention my name, which is Leah, Leah, and I'll help you through that. All right, guys, if you were watching this live, feel free to stay on and I will send over those links. And if you're watching this recorded, I hope you have a great day.